my spoiled stepdaughter said. Either pay for my $20,000 vacation or lose me. Her mom chose her side and insisted I pay for the vacation. So I paid a lawyer instead. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Simon Roman from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. I always believed in doing the right thing, being the bigger person, the provider, the steady hand in a storm. When I married Denise, 5 years ago, I knew she came with Kayla, her teenage daughter from a previous relationship. And I was okay with that. I embraced the idea of a blended family. I took on the role not just of husband but stepfather, mentor, sometimes even punching bag. I paid for orthodontics, for driving lessons, even covered her first semester of college when her father mysteriously couldn't. I wasn't trying to be a hero, just a man who honored his promises. But the day Kayla sat across from me at the kitchen table, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Either you pay for my $20,000 graduation trip to Bali or lose me." Something inside me cracked. Not snapped. Cracked, like the slow fracture in glass that you know will shatter if you keep touching it. The kitchen felt too small for the three of us. Kayla's nails were freshly done, long, almond-shaped, painted some shade of tropical pink. Her phone sat beside her untouched, which already told me how serious she was being. Denise stood at the sink, arms folded, waiting for my response like a silent referee. For a moment, I thought it was a joke. I even chuckled softly. "Bali," I repeated cautiously. $20,000? Flights, resort, private villa, excursions. I already priced everything out. She slid a printed itinerary across the table like a contract. 5 friends. We're booking in groups. Everyone's dad is paying. I stared at the paper but didn't reach for it. And if I say no? She didn't blink. Then you're showing me exactly where I stand in your life. The audacity of it silenced me. I looked at Denise, hoping for some balance, some trace of sanity. Instead, she nodded toward the paper. "She's worked hard all year," she said, as if I hadn't watched Kayla flunk 3 classes and scream at her tutor. "You said you'd treat her like your own. And my own child," I said, my voice catching, "would never give me an ultimatum." Kayla rolled her eyes. "You're acting like I'm asking for a car." "No," I said. "You're acting like I owe you a reward for treating me like I don't exist." That set her off. "Wow, so I'm just a burden to you? After all these years?" She pushed back from the table, dramatic as ever, and grabbed her phone. "I knew you'd show your true colors. I'm telling Mom you're just another cheap stepdad." Denise's eyes narrowed, not at Kayla, but at me. "She's right about one thing. You did make promises. Maybe it's time you stop pretending you're the victim." That night, I sat in the garage, door closed, engine off, just breathing in silence. Not crying, not yelling, just sitting. Trying to understand how a family I'd poured into for years could turn around and frame me as the selfish one for refusing to buy love. It wasn't about the money. It was about the message. And the message was loud and clear: comply or be cut off. The next morning, I found myself staring at my toothbrush like it had answers. I was brushing my teeth like normal, going through the motions of an ordinary day, but nothing about it felt ordinary. I kept replaying Kayla's words. "Either you pay or lose me." It echoed like a bad ringtone in my head, irritating and impossible to ignore. And Denise's silence that followed? That was worse than anything Kayla could have said. Silence, to me, was consent. Silence meant she'd already picked her side. I didn't even get a "let's talk about this later," or maybe she didn't mean it like that. No, Denise just let it sit there, like it made perfect sense. I tried telling myself it was heat of the moment talk. Teenagers say wild things. But Denise wasn't a teenager. She was a 44-year-old woman who looked me in the face and basically said, "Do it for peace." At breakfast, Kayla skipped the kitchen entirely. Didn't say good morning. Didn't look at me. Denise sat across from me, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. I cleared my throat. "So we're not going to talk about last night?" She barely looked up. What's there to talk about? I laughed bitterly. You think it's normal for a kid to threaten her relationship over a vacation? She didn't threaten anything, she said, defensive now. She just wants to know she matters. By demanding $20,000? Denise slammed her mug down, hard enough to spill. You always make everything about money. No, I said, standing now. You all do. I just happen to be the one paying for it. She flinched, but didn't back down. You're being dramatic. No, I said quietly. I'm being disrespected. I left the house early that day, drove around for a bit before heading to the office. My phone buzzed constantly, Slack messages, client calls, meetings stacked one after another, but all I could think about was how unrecognizable my life had become. I used to walk into that house and feel like I'd built something. Now, it felt like I'd sponsored a project doomed from the start. That night, I tried again. I really did. I waited until Kayla was upstairs, headphones on, and sat beside Denise on the couch. I don't want this to be a war, I told her. But this feels like a setup. Like no matter what I say, I'm the villain. She looked tired, older than I remembered. Do you know what it's like watching your daughter feel unwanted in her own home? I blinked. What? She told me she's always felt like a guest, like she had to tiptoe around you. That hurt. Not because it was true, but because it was the story being sold behind my back. I helped her get that job at the tech firm. I bought her car. I paid off her first semester loans. And you kept score, Denise snapped. She feels it. That was the moment I realized we weren't speaking the same language anymore. No matter what I gave, it would never count if it wasn't unconditional, and unconditional, apparently, meant bottomless. The next day, I called my friend James. We hadn't talked in a few months, but he'd been through a rough divorce and always shot straight. She gave you an ultimatum over a damn trip? He asked, incredulous. And her mom backed it? Yeah, I said, voice low. And now I'm the villain. He didn't even hesitate. Then play the villain, bro. Better to be hated for saying no than bled dry saying yes. It stayed with me, the idea of being the villain. I hated it. But maybe it was time I stopped being the hero in a story that only rewarded martyrs. That night, while Denise slept, I sat in the living room scrolling through my contacts. My thumb hovered over one name longer than the rest. Daniel Klein, family law. I didn't press it yet, but I knew I would. Soon. I scheduled the meeting on a Thursday afternoon, right after my final client call. I didn't tell Denise where I was going. I didn't need another argument or another one of her passive-aggressive sighs as she folded laundry like it was punishment. I just said I'd be home late and left it at that. The drive to Daniel Klein's office felt like walking into a confessional. I wasn't even sure I was ready to do this, but I needed to talk to someone who didn't have a stake in Kayla's graduation photos or our anniversary dinner plans. Someone who could help me draw a line in the sand. Daniel was sharp, calm, and had the kind of eyes that didn't flinch when you told him your worst truths. He listened, quietly taking notes as I laid it all out. The trip, the ultimatum, Denise's response, the Cold War in my own house. He didn't react. Not at first. When I finished, he looked at me and said, "You're not asking me if this is crazy. You're asking me if it's justified." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He leaned back. "We can file for no fault. Clean split. If you've been covering most of the financials, we'll need to document that. But you're in a strong position." Strong. That word stuck with me. For the first time in weeks, I felt it. Not angry, not bitter, just solid. Like I wasn't losing my mind. Like maybe choosing peace wasn't selfish after all. I walked out of that office with a folder full of documents and a business card I couldn't stop touching, flipping it between my fingers like a poker chip. That night, I stayed late at the office and didn't go home until almost 10. When I finally walked through the front door, the house was quiet. Kayla was gone. Denise was on the couch, wine glass in hand, watching some crime drama with the volume way too loud. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Dinner's in the microwave," she said, as if we were strangers passing in a dorm kitchen. I stood there, keys still in hand. "Where's Kayla?" "Out with friends. Probably finalizing her trip details." I almost laughed. Of course she was. The world hadn't stopped spinning for her. Just for me. I sat down across from Denise. "I met with a lawyer today." She blinked. Slowly. Her lips parted just enough to speak, but nothing came out at first. Then finally, "Excuse me. I'm not doing this anymore. The gaslighting, the guilt trips, the idea that I'm supposed to bankrupt myself to prove I care. So you're leaving?" Her voice rose slightly. "Over this?" "No," I said. "I'm leaving because this isn't a partnership. It's a transaction, and I'm done being the account holder." She stood, jaw tight. "So you're just going to throw everything away because a teenager acted like a teenager?" "She's 19, I snapped. "Old enough to know how to manipulate people. And you let her. You helped her." For a moment, I saw the flicker in her eyes, the part of her that knew I was right. But then it vanished, replaced by the same mask she'd worn for weeks. "Wow," she said, shaking her head. "You're really doing this." "I already did," I said. "The paperwork's being filed tomorrow." She didn't speak, just turned, grabbed her glass, and walked up the stairs without another word. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet shuffle of feet upstairs, the faint hum of Kayla's playlist through the wall. The home I built had turned against me, and yet, I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I had the divorce papers served on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Kayla's ultimatum, 2.5 weeks after I stopped pretending this marriage was salvageable, and exactly 10 days since I last heard my wife call me by my name. Not you, not him, but my name. I asked the process server to deliver them around 11 a.m., when I knew both Denise and Kayla would be home. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want the confrontation. I just wanted the line drawn. Black ink on white paper, no more blurred boundaries. The server texted me a photo once it was done, a manila envelope on our front porch, half covered by Denise's favorite welcome mat, that said, "Love lives here." The irony hit me in the gut. I stared at the picture longer than I should have. Then I turned off my phone and walked into my afternoon meeting like nothing had happened. By the time I got home, the war had already begun. Denise met me at the door with her phone in hand, tears in her eyes, mascara streaked down one cheek like war paint. "You served me at home?" she hissed, her voice low and sharp, like a knife behind closed lips. "In front of my daughter?" "Our daughter, remember?" I said. Or was that just a title when the bills needed paying? That was the wrong thing to say. She stepped back like I slapped her. "Wow. So now she's just a bill to you." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I was too tired to argue with someone who would never admit their part in anything. She followed me into the living room, yelling behind me. "You blindsided me. After everything, this is how you end it." "You ended it," I said, finally turning around. "The second you chose her threats over this marriage." "Threats?" Kayla's voice cut through the air like broken glass. She stood on the stairs now, arms crossed, phone in hand, filming me. "Say it again. Say what you really think of me." I stared at her, this girl I had helped raise, this girl who used to cry in my arms after fights with her mom, this girl I once called my daughter. "I think you're spoiled," I said flatly. "And I think you learned that from watching your mother excuse every bad behavior you've ever had." Her jaw dropped. She stopped filming. Denise gasped like I'd insulted her bloodline. "How dare you?" "No," I said. "How dare you? How dare you let her talk to me like a bank account with legs? How dare you sit there while she told me to buy her love or lose her? And how dare you expect me to swallow it just to keep the peace?" Kayla stormed upstairs, slamming her door. Denise followed, still shouting things I couldn't make out. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by silence and echo. Later that night, Kayla posted on Instagram a photo of her at brunch, middle finger up, captioned, "Imagine losing your family because you're cheap." Friends I hadn't spoken to in years tagged me in it. Distant relatives slid into my DMs with messages like, "Shame on you. And this is how you treat your family?" A cousin of Denise's even messaged me, "Hope you saved money on the trip. You'll need it to buy some dignity." I didn't reply. I didn't delete. I didn't even block. Because they didn't know the full story. And they didn't have to. The fallout didn't stay in our house. It spilled into everything. My inbox, my voicemail, even my gym. It's funny how people who never visited your home suddenly have an opinion when the story is juiced up and half told. The first call came from Denise's sister, Carla. We'd always been cordial, shared wine at Thanksgiving, even exchanged memes during the pandemic. But now she spoke like I was a headline. Man ditches family over vacation. Come on, Greg, she sighed. You're really divorcing her over a trip? I kept my voice calm. It was never about the trip. She didn't listen. She's devastated. Kayla is embarrassed. You know what that kind of public humiliation does to a young woman. Oh, I'm very aware of public humiliation, I said. Especially after she blasted me on Instagram like I was a deadbeat dad. Carla paused, her tone shifting. Okay, yeah, that post was a bit much, but still, couldn't you have just talked it out? I did, I said, over and over. But when someone gives you an ultimatum, they've already decided you're the bad guy unless you fold. The call ended with a long silence and an insincere, well, I hope you find peace. Next came my brother, Marcus, a pragmatist through and through. So, he said after a long pause, how bad was it? Ultimatum level bad, I replied. 20 grand or lose me. He whistled. Damn, yeah. Then came the question that always got me. Why didn't you just pay it and deal with the marriage later? Because that's what everyone wanted, really. Not a solution. Just peace on the outside. Pay the toll, avoid the crash. Sweep it under the rug like the rest of America's emotionally bankrupt families. I would have spent $20,000 just to delay the inevitable, I told him. And I've been delaying for 5 years. The only person who truly got it was James. When I met him for drinks that weekend, he showed up with a bottle of aged bourbon and a tired smile. I saw the post, he said, sliding the drink across. Classy move. I'm famous now, I muttered. He laughed, then turned serious. You did the right thing. Most guys I know wouldn't have had the spine. That's the problem, I said. We're trained to be providers, not people. Say no and you're a monster. Better to be the monster than the mule. His words sat with me the rest of the weekend. And then Monday morning hit, and with it, the email from HR. Hi Greg, just flagging this. We received a complaint referencing a hostile family matter connected to your social media presence. Just a formality, but can we schedule a quick check-in? Apparently, one of Kayla's friends, who interned at my firm 2 summers ago, sent an email with screenshots and a dramatic subject line. This is the man representing your company? It didn't go anywhere. HR cleared me in 5 minutes. But the damage had already been done in my mind. My name, once synonymous with stability and success, was now tied to a petty family scandal. And not because I lashed out or did something reckless, but because I finally said no. Still, I didn't regret it. Every morning I woke up alone in my new apartment, a modest 2-bedroom with a view of nothing in particular. I felt lighter. I missed Denise sometimes, or maybe just the idea of her. The way she used to touch my arm at dinner when she wanted to say something private. The way she laughed with her whole chest when she didn't know anyone was watching. But I didn't miss this version of her. The one who weaponized guilt and watched her daughter do the same. I kept thinking about something Daniel, my lawyer, said during our last meeting. Everyone has a price. The question is, are you willing to pay it? And for what? I used to think love was priceless. But I learned the hard way. Some people expect a price. And if you're not willing to pay, they'll call you selfish, wicked, heartless. Let them. 3 months after the papers were signed, I sat alone on my balcony with a cup of coffee in silence. Not the kind that weighs on your chest, the kind that breathes with you. I had never realized how loud our house had been until I moved out. The constant tension disguised as casual conversation, the coded sarcasm, the slamming doors when things didn't go Kayla's way. Now, the only sound was the city humming beneath me, and it was the most honest company I'd had in years. I hadn't heard from Denise since the divorce was finalized. No, are you okay? No, why did we let it get this far? She disappeared from my life like a refund request, silent, administrative, clinical. Kayla blocked me on everything, which honestly felt like a blessing. The last image I saw before she vanished was a photo from her half-crowdfunded trip to Cabo, not Bali, I noted, with a caption that read, "Some people don't deserve your loyalty, but sunsets always will." I didn't even feel anger. Just exhaustion. And clarity. I bumped into Denise's cousin at the grocery store not long after. She pretended not to see me, but when our carts finally crossed paths, she forced a smile. "Heard you're doing well," she said stiffly. "I am. I replied, matching her energy. You know, Kayla's been seeing a therapist. This whole thing really messed her up. I nodded. Actions have consequences. Her face twisted a little, like I'd just said something cruel. You really don't feel bad at all? I stared at her, steady and unflinching. I feel bad that a 19-year-old thought she could buy love. I feel worse that her mother encouraged it. But I don't feel bad for finally walking away. She muttered something about, hope you heal, and wheeled off. Funny how healing only becomes urgent when you start setting boundaries. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Denise. It was short. No apology. No acknowledgement of what went wrong. Just a single line that stuck with me. I wish you'd loved her like she needed. I folded it, tucked it in my drawer, and didn't respond. Because the truth is, I did love Kayla. I loved her the way a man loves a child he didn't help make, but tried to help raise. I was there for her. I showed up. I gave without a scoreboard, until they handed me one and asked for the final score. In the end, I didn't lose a family. I walked away from an illusion. I found peace, not in being right, but in being done. What would you do if someone put a price on your love? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been expected to buy your place in a family? Let's talk about it. And if you've ever walked away to protect your peace, I see you. You're not wicked. You're just done being used. Subscribe for more true life stories that pull no punches. This is real life. Messy, complicated, and unapologetically human. See you soon in the next story.